Not every fighter is gonna retire undefeated. Not every fighter is gonna be a Hall of Famer. Not every fighter is gonna be an all-time great. It does not mean this guy was a bum. It doesn't mean that he should not be remembered. It does not mean that he deserves disrespect or that his career deserves disrespect. Welcome to my underappreciated fighters series where I talk about fighters that I believe are disrespected by boxing fans or that I believe deserve more recognition, deserve to be talked about a lot more than they are. Today I'll be talking about Michael the Great Katsidis, who ended his career at 33-8 with 24 knockouts. He was referred to as early in his career or during his prime as the Australian Gatti, the Aussie Gatti. He was a 2000 Olympian, and a lot of people remember him for his entrance dressed as a gladiator because his dad was of Greek heritage, and for his insane back tattoo that was also a symbol of his Greek heritage. One very interesting fact about Katsidis' career is that in his second pro fight, yes, his very second pro fight in 2002, he fought 12 rounds. He won a 12-round unanimous decision against a guy with 7 fights. In his second pro fight, where most of these guys are still building up the record, fighting 4-rounders, guys coming up, especially an Olympian, would be fighting 4-rounders against journeymen, against guys that they know that they could beat, maybe guys that are a little tough, but not guys that will take them 12 rounds. They're definitely not being scheduled for 12 rounds, but not only was Katsidis scheduled for 12 rounds in his second pro fight, but he went all 12 rounds and won unanimously. He won on all 3 cards in his second pro fight. Let me know if you have ever in your life heard of a boxer going 12 rounds in his second pro fight. Okay, I'll stop repeating myself, but that is just incredible to me. Katsidis' first significant fight, you could say, or his first fight that is remembered by fans, is his fight against Graham Earl, who was 25-1 and who had only lost to an undefeated Ricky Burns. This fight was for the interim WBO lightweight title. And this is a classic fight. This is a wild fight where it probably looked like in the first round that it was gonna be a very easy fight for Katsidis because he was dominating. But man, chaos. This fight was chaos. I'm not gonna go deep into details because I made an underrated fights video on this fight. So go check that out. But all I can say is this fight's wild, and I will spoil it for you. But go watch my video. Go watch this fight. Katsidis wins a 5th-round TKO when I forgot if it was the referee or I think it was a referee that stops it because in the 5th round he said, "Hey man, show me something. This is your last round," and he did pretty good, but he was getting beat up, so it was definitely a good stoppage. Now his very next fight was his first fight on U.S. television. This fight was on the Bernard Hopkins Winky Wright undercard, and I wish I had remembered this fight instead of the main event because that main event was a stinker. But this fight was against Czar Amnansah, a Filipino guy who Jim Lampley or one of those HBO guys, they refer to him as the next Manny Pacquiao because he had giant calves, just like Pacquiao did. But man, was this fight violent. And boy, was it bloody. Katsidis cut very easily. And even though he dropped him in the second round and he was winning this fight, he had so many damn cuts. He was cut on under both his eyelids. He was cut, I think, bad on top of his left eyebrow, and the doctor was threatening to stop this fight because he was just losing so much blood, and he was winning this fight. It's just that Amnasat was landing such good hard shots on Katsidis, and his face cut so easily that the doctor threatened to stop it before the 10th round. And he went out the 10th round to stop him, and he knocked him down. But this tough little Filipino guy, he would not stay down. He was very hurt. But after the 10th round, the doctor kind of eased up. He was like, he looks like he's fighting good, so he didn't really get threatened like that again. So the fight went all 12 rounds. Casitas had dropped Amnasat 2 times, and that was enough for him to win this fight. I saw some people on the YouTube comments say that he got robbed, but no chance, no chance. It was a very good decision for Katsidis, who almost stopped him, who, when he had to step it up, did, and almost stopped this guy, but he was just way too tough. His very next fight was against Joel Casamayor, who is probably the best Cuban fighter in modern era. Let me know if you agree with that. Or if you don't, let me know who is a better modern professional Cuban fighter than Joel Casamayor. It's pretty tough to beat. I think he's a borderline Hall of Famer. And at this point, he was 35, 3, and 1. His only losses were to Jose Luis Castillo, Diego Corrales, and Marcelino Frietas. Nothing to hang his head low about. Also, he claimed that he got robbed in those 3 fights. So he had that. He had that confidence of an undefeated guy, even though he wasn't undefeated. His best wins at this point came against Diego Corrales, Robert Garcia, and Nate Campbell. I believe this fight is very underrated, especially because Joel Casamayor is considered a technician. A guy, a Cuban fighter, guy that's in love with the sweet science, in love with moving around, sticking and moving. But Casamayor has some very good fights too. He has this fight. He has a Marcus fight. I believe was very exciting, good to watch. Counterpuncher versus counterpuncher. But if you don't like that type of fight, you'll love this type of fight, and you'll love his fight against Corrales. At least the first fight. That fight is another underrated gem. But this fight started off fast. It looked like Casamayor was gonna be just way too good, way too skilled, because he dropped Katsidis twice with the straight left in the first round. His straight left could not miss. But after a couple rounds of consistent pressure, Casillas finally got to Casamayor in the 6th round, and Casamayor was hurt. He knocked him outside of the ring, and it looked like Casillas had turned the tables once again, or for the first time, in his favor. By the 10th round, it was about as even a fight as you could have it. I forgot who I had winning at this point, but it was a close one. It was brawler versus technician, boxer versus pressure fighter, and puncher. But against a fighter as good and as polished as Casamayor, you gotta remember he's a gold medalist. He's a Cuban fighter. You can't start a round as reckless and as wild as Casitas did the 10th round, because he got caught with a hard left that had him stumbling onto the ground. He gets up, and the referee lets the fight continue. But after a few hard punches by Casamayor, the referee had no other choice than to stop this fight. So he had his first loss after 23 fights, being undefeated, 23-0 with 20 knockouts. His very next fight, Casillas received his second professional loss against the baby bull Juan Diaz, who was also known as a pressure fighter who threw 80 to 100 punches around. Now, when this fight was signed, People thought this was gonna be an amazing war between two power punches. This fight was gonna be insane. Truth be told, it was a good fight, but Juan Diaz used his ring IQ, he used his jab, he used his footwork movement to outmaneuver Katsidis through 12 rounds, and he won a split decision, but it shouldn't have been split. It should have been unanimous. The baby bull Juan Diaz, the two-time world champion at this point, who had wins against Acelino Freitas and Julio Diaz by knockout, and he only had one loss to Nate Campbell. After his first two professional losses, Katsidis was on the comeback trail, and he came back against a couple very good opponents. Jesus Chavez, who's best known for fighting Floyd Mayweather, and was one of the best wins Mayweather had at 130, probably top 5. Chavez had wins against Emmanuel Augustus and Carlos Hernandez, who was the only man alive to have dropped Floyd Mayweather in the professional rankings. He also lost to, like I said, Mayweather, Eric Morales, and Julio Diaz. Now, this is another very good fight that Chavez was winning, but Katsidis kept the pressure on. And once a headbutt opened the cut on the top of Jesus Chavez's head, he got kind of discouraged. And Katsidis took this as a sign for him to bull rush him. Chavez was getting dominated in the 7th round. And after the 7th round, he just stood in his corner and quit. He made a very tough fighter like Jesus Chavez quit because of his aggressive nature. In a very, very good fight. In his very next fight, Katsidis beat up and dominated a 25-1 2004 Olympian Vicente Escobedo on the Mayweather Marquez undercard. Now, I remember this fight on the Mayweather Marquez undercard because I was very excited for Mayweather's comeback, and I was excited to see how Marquez would do against Mayweather. But I remember watching Katsidis beat up Escobedo from post to post. I remember this saying, man, that's a big ring. But Escobedo could not run from Katsidis. Escobedo was a very good fighter that had a couple title shots, never won the big one. But he probably ultimately now is known as the guy that Broner missed weight by 3 pounds at 130 and lost the belt against, and then got brutally stopped. He's that guy. Speaking of getting beat up, Kevin Mitchell undefeated, 31-0, 23 knockouts. Katsidis destroyed this kid in 3 rounds. Another British height job bites the dust. Thank you, mate. Thank you for exposing this guy. His last 3 impressive wins earned him a shot at the lightweight king, the lineal champion, the ring champion, Juan Manuel Marquez. Katsidis dedicated this fight to his brother, who was found dead about 40 days before this fight. And he fought his heart out. He dropped Marquez in the 3rd round. But Marquez was so nice. He was so precise with his combinations, his uppercuts, his hooks. If I could praise Marquez for a second, he gets praised enough, but he deserves it. He came back from that 3rd round and possibly won it. I still scored it 10-8, but man, was that impressive. Was Marquez impressive? Were his body shots, oh man, beautiful. This fight got stopped in the 9th, and it was a good stoppage. But Katsidis, man, this was his best performance of his career. He got very emotional in the post-fight interview when Larry Merchant asked him about his brother. He said, "I miss you, mate," and then started kind of crying. But man, he fought his heart out in this fight. Fun fact about this fight is Andre Berto, Erzlandi Lara, Nate Campbell, Keith Thurman all fought on the televised and untelevised undercard of this fight. That turned out to be Katsidis' last title shot for a legit title. His very next fight was for an interim belt against Robert Guerrero, and this is where in the beginning of the fight, when they were to touch gloves, he looked at Guerrero and screamed, "What are you looking at? What are you looking at?" Unfortunately, that was the most exciting part of this fight as Guerrero boxed him. And what an easy decision against Katsidis. His last significant fight was against Ricky Burns in 2011, where he lost a wide unanimous decision. And like the Guerrero fight, he got beaten soundly. He, like usual, gave everything he got. He fought his heart out. He won a couple rounds, but the movement was too much. The jab was too much, and this was his last significant opponent. Since then, he's been 5-3. He did fight a rematch against Graham Earl just for the sake of nostalgia, but both of these guys were way past their prime by 2014. And his last fight was against Robert Toomey in November of last year in some type of tournament. Like he fought the 2 3 rounders in one day. So it was some type of European or Aussie tournament. Well, he should really hang them up because first off, he has nothing to prove to anyone. Second off, he's not winning a world title anymore. And he's been taking a lot of punishment, especially in his last 8 fights, because he's not in his prime anymore. He's no spring chicken, and he's fighting these young guys, and he's just way too willing to exchange. His style is not meant for longevity. Hopefully, Katsidis announces his retirement soon, and then he'll sleep like a baby because he's had a hell of a career. He's a 2 time interim world champion. He knocked down a future Hall of Famer, Juan Manuel Marquez, and fought several world champions, fought on several big undercards, and even headlined a few cards, one with said Hall of Famer. Most importantly, he will be remembered for the great fights he gave for the fans. So go ahead and look up some of his best fights and get ready to be entertained for hours. And guys, please stop calling these fighters, these world champions, these contenders bums. Stop disrespecting good fighters, especially when they provide hours of entertainment to you and me, like Katsidis. Thanks everybody for watching. What are some underappreciated fighters you could think of? Peace.